In this video, I'm going to be talking about the settings that you can, the settings and how a amp works for you to achieve the sound that you want to achieve, the sound you want. Okay, first we obviously need a guitar and an amplifier. There are many types of amplifier. There are mainly, from my knowledge, two types. A valve amp, which uses a valve to produce the sound. It's normally a more analog type of sound. It sounds a lot warmer, but they come with, at a consequence that you need to maintain them quite a lot and very well, otherwise they'll break. And the second type is our digital amps, which come with presets and are far more easy to maintain than valve amps, and they generally do give off a better sound, but it can sound more digitalized in comparison to a valve amp. And they also come with more add-ons such as effects. Obviously, the first thing you want to do with your amplifier is you want to plug it into the mains of the wall, and obviously you'd want to turn the plug on. So that's what we're going to be doing right now. As you can see, here is the on button, and it's just turned on. Secondly, what you want to do is you want to, actually you don't want to do this secondly, in fact first, before you even turn it on, my mistake, is you want to plug the guitar in, which is done via a jack, a 1/4 inch jack, and that is feeded then into the guitar. The reason why you already plug this in and not do it after you turn it on is because if I was to demonstrate, which I'll do very very quickly, it creates this sound here, which I just need to, one second. It's not creating it. One sec. Why isn't it doing that sound? It's not actually doing it. It's cancelled it out. That's the sound I wanted. The reason why you plug the jack in first is because if you do it secondly, you get this sound here. Right there. That sound right there, which effectively can damage the amplifier, because it affects the cones and the frequency response of the speakers themselves. So that is why it's important to plug that in before you turn it on. So I'm going to quickly go over the settings that you have, which can be found on an amplifier. In this particular amp, we have the presettings, which I'm not entirely sure how many there are, but there's at least probably 10. As you can see, it goes around. It goes from red to green. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but it probably means one is cleaner than the other and one is more distorted. I'm not entirely sure. And next to that, you have the drive, which is also known as the gain. And the gain is essentially how much signal is being allowed to feed into the amplifier itself. By having no gain, you don't really have a sound because there's no signal being fed in. But meanwhile, if you have a lot of gain, which will be obviously, as you can see right now, it would most likely be a very distorted sound and clip a lot, and clip, so therefore produce distortion. You'd normally find that very common on sounds such as rock, but especially heavy metal and those sorts of genres. Next, you have these three knobs here, which is effectively the EQ of the amplifier. Although it is very broad, because it only separates the audio spectrum into three pieces, they generally don't need to be much more specific than this. The bass generally modifies the bass frequencies, which are roughly, I guess, would be 1000 hertz to below. Meanwhile, the mid modifies the mid frequencies of the audio spectrum, such as, yet again, I'm not entirely sure exactly what this amplifier specifically changes, but it'd be probably around about 3000 to 7000 hertz, more or less. And the treble, lastly, modifies the highest frequencies of the spectrum, which could possibly be 10K and plus to a certain extent. Here you have channel volume, which is not found on many amps, but this one is.
believe due to the fact that it is mainly a preset amp, as I mentioned before, and this effectively can be translated as in the volume of the actual amplifier. Here you have three knobs which are used as effects, which cannot be found on Valve amps. Only electrical digital amps. Here you have effects which can give you more gain, which effectively can make it sound more of a metal type sound, more of a rock sound, depending on the preset you have. Auto, I sincerely don't know exactly what that does. And pitch, lastly, creates almost like a harmony type sound to the instrument, as if two people playing at the same time. I'm going to put that back. Next you have chorus, which is yet again another effect. Chorus is, it makes sounds warmer. I'm not entirely sure how, but that's what the effect can achieve. It's mainly used in genres such as surf music, some types of blues, and even possibly rock music in some extent, but mostly pop rock. Here you have phaser, which I'm not entirely sure exactly what it does, but it's very similar to the pitch effects as I've mentioned previously. It gives almost like a wavy type effect to the sound of the guitar. And lastly you have tremolo, which is essentially a translation of if you was to raise the volume of the master up and down extremely quick, creating almost extreme fluctuations in volume. And lastly you have delays. The delay is essentially almost giving space to the instrument, even though it's not entirely necessary. Obviously there's many types of delay, but here there's only three types: delay, tape delay, and sweep delay. One obviously each characterized differently from one another. And lastly you have reverb, which is also known as echo, but the preferred term is reverb, and this essentially adds depth into the instrument as if it was in a larger room than what it could be. This is yet again found mostly in blues music, surf music, some genres of rock music, and it can make the instrument have a lot more, a lot more space, so it can sound not so suffocated. And lastly you have the master, which effectively is the master, well, as its name says, it controls the overall volume of all the other presets. So you want to make sure that this isn't, whacked out to the top, otherwise you probably hurt your ears. Okay. So after now talking about the settings that you can change on an amplifier, I'm going to achieve 4 basic sounds. Let's first start with the clean sound, which, if I begin, I will turn up the master by about a quarter, as well as the channel volume to probably about half for the time being, and I'm going to select the clean preset right here. And if I turn up the volume on the guitar, also how do I get rid of these settings?
There you go.
Right, so just turn the drive down. Oh, the drive wasn't up. Right, that is a little bit too loud for my liking, so I'm just going to turn that up a little bit more from the mastering. So there we go, a nice clean sound. The thing is though, because of the way this amp is, and it comes with presettings, you highly unlikely really need to change the actual EQ. But just for this, in case you don't have presettings, I'm going to show you what you probably need to do anyway to achieve a clean sound. So really you want to turn up the bass a little bit, give it a bit more warmth, turn it about mid, about half, and about treble, about half as well. So as you can hear, a nice, clean, warm sound. There's no modulation, there's no gain, or there's no distortion, I mean, and it's generally the first sound you start off with any particular amp. But now, to make things a bit more interesting, I'm going to make a blues sound. So for the time being, I'm going to turn the volume down so I don't get no sudden drops of volume. I'm going to go on here and I'm going to select the blues setting, because this is a preset amp. And if I turn the volume back up, it should sound a bit grittier. Oh, that's a bit too loud. I'm going to turn it down by a couple of fractions. So if you listen, that sounds generally too clean. So in order to get that pumped up bit of a grittiness in it, you want to turn up the drive, which effectively distorts the signal, therefore giving it a bit more of a rocky type sound. And if I'm gonna, as you can see, the sound has become a little bit more different than what it was previously. It doesn't really sound bluesy, it sounds still a bit too clean. So you might want to, yet again, tweak the EQ section to make certain elements more predominant. In this case, I'm going to be turning the mid all the way up to the top, and I'm going to be keeping the treble around about 2/3 to give it that real sort of bluesy drive. Let me play a little bit. If you want to get that almost like a rocky blues, you simply turn up the drive a bit more, get more distortion. Bit of chords. And that will be a blues to a rock blues. Now I'm going to show you how to achieve a rock sound, which in a certain light is pretty much identical to a blues sound, considering that rock music developed from blues. So in order to achieve the rock sound, I think I might want to go with a crunch presetting, because that way it gives a bit more of a rockiness, rock-likeness to the sound. I'm going to turn the drive down a little bit for the time being, but when the EQ, I'm going to probably turn the mid about half, and the treble put about to about 3 o'clock. Still sounds a bit too clean. So what we're going to do in order to get that pure rock sound is we're going to go into one of the effects over here. We're going to hit gain. That way we get more distortion from the signal and give us that rock sound that we want. So as you can see, there's not that much difference between many of the sounds. Not much difference between blues, a bit of rock blues, and rock itself. And considering that rock music and metal music are also very closely related, I'm going to also show you how you can achieve a metal sound. I'm going to go on here to the presets, and I'm going to select metal, because and it seems to be, considering I'm going to be attempting metal music, seems to be the most appropriate. Just for the time being, I'm going to turn the master down and the channel volume so I don't get any sudden peaks. As you can notice, it's far more distortion than it was previously. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably just show you exactly. If I turn the gain up, it becomes more and more. So if I turn up to the max, it's going to become more and more distorted. Because the more gain, the more eclipse, hence more distortion. But in order to achieve the authentic metal sound, you really want to turn the mid really high. No, not actually. Keep the mid about 2/3. Keep the treble really high and the bass relatively low. You also might want to give it a bit of a delay, considering what sort of type of metal you wish to perform. Here's a little example. There's also, the thing is that there's one small little problem when you depict this this sort of sound, is because there's so much distortion. If you attempt to play chords, they sound very messy because the distortion. Sorry, if you didn't hear me. They sound very messy because the distortion almost wears out the sound of the individual notes, hence making them sound close to the same. It also makes the strings far more sensitive, so in order to keep your playing tidy, you might want to either lower the gain or learn how to avoid that situation. And lastly, I'm going to show you how to make a surf sound. We're going to go back on the presets, and considering surf and blues sort of come from the same boat, we're going to go back onto the blues section, although you can pick a different one, such as the clean, but I'm happy selecting the blues preset. So we're going to go on over here, we're going to go back on the drive, and we don't need that much gain, so we're going to turn that right back down to about a third. The bass part of the surf is relatively quite important, so we're going to turn that up to about half, more or less. It comes to the mid. The mid doesn't need to be that high in my opinion, so we're going to lower that to about half, and the treble about the same, although we might need to change that in the future. Just give it a bit of a try. Gain, I'm going to turn that off because we don't need it, and on the chorus I'm going to be turning that up to give it a bit more of a breezy type sound, and also make it sound a bit warming and welcoming. The delay, I'm going to be turning that off because I don't believe it's necessary, although you can add it if you want, and I'm going to turn the reverb up to about half. That way we get a bit more air and room into the sound. Here's a little trial run. Sensitive, these controls, aren't they? It seems like I need a little bit more gain to get a bit more volume, so I'll turn it about half. And it's sort of, this sound, although it's called surf, it gives a very dreamy sound to the instrument, which if you are playing scales such as the Lydian, which are very dreamy scales themselves, having this sort of preset might be the best thing to do because it achieves that essence in the sound itself. And they are the effects that I'm going to be showing to you in this video. So what we're going to be doing now is I'm going to show you how to effectively and safely turn off your equipment. And first you start by turning the volume off of the guitar, done by this button here, which although it says tone, it's actually the volume button. So once that is done, you can put your guitar aside on the floor or on your lap. And what you're going to do is you're going to go to your amplifier, and you are essentially going to turn everything, all these knobs that you've been changing to achieve the sound that you want, you're going to be turning them off, although this preset button doesn't really make a difference. So the bass as well, the mid as well, the treble, everything. And the reason for this is because if you leave, say, the master up as well as the channel volume, when you turn the amp off over here, you get a bit of a pop. And that pop, although it does seem small and insignificant, but just like as I was mentioning with the jack lead, it can damage the amplifier, especially if you do it over time and if the volume is very loud, because it's just not good for it because of the sudden change in signals. So once you've done all that, you turn all the things off. You're going to turn the amp off itself, which is done by the off button right here, and you turn it off from the mains, which are over there, and then you can unplug your guitar amp, your guitar lead perfectly fine, and pack things away. Or if you wanted to, you could essentially leave the EQ buttons where they were, in case you don't want to, lose a sound you achieved while you was practicing. It's mainly the volume buttons that are the most important, that you should always turn off before you turn your amp off. And that is how you do your amp sounds.